Did you ever have a close call in any of your reporting on the Beauty Queen story or other stories? And if so, what did you overlook and what did you learn?
Um, we when we were out reporting the Beauty Queen story, we actually were at the pageant and we saw like 16 trucks of military dress, like police force. There were soldiers who arrived, and we just didn't know what was happening. So we thought, okay, maybe we should have anticipated, like to ask organizers more. Are you gonna deploy, security to, take care of the pageant, take care of the contestants. We just didn't know. We didn't know what to expect, and I thought that there was maybe an operation happening, or because it's not common that you see like 16 trucks arriving in a small town in northern Mexico at a beauty pageant. So I thought, okay, maybe we should have prepared more for something like this, and I just didn't ask, what kind of security protocol you're going to follow for your pageant. But in terms of other kinds of stories, I mean, there's been cases where I felt that it wasn't safe to be somewhere, and then there was a shootout. So there's been cases where I had been literally been in a corner and we were out reporting, and we were seeing a lot of the lookouts. They're young boys who work, telling the drug cartels who is in town, who is in the neighborhood, or if they see journalists, they may ask you something. So I didn't feel safe in this one. I remember a situation. It wasn't for this story, and I felt we needed to go. And then we heard of a big shootouts in that neighborhood, so it was good that we left. So it's always good to trust your instinct. If someone is asking you questions like, what are you doing here? Who are you with? And you should tell, I'm a reporter. I'm with this, organization. I'm doing a story. Just doing a story shouldn't be like telling them all about your story. Just say I'm working, doing a story. But you should always be mindful of those kinds of signals and be ready to leave. As I said before, be ready to leave. Pack your things. Always have like, okay, if you have a driver, or if you have you park your car, or if you are going to ask for a cab, for instance, you should always have the number in hand and just be ready to leave. Those have been sort of like the close calls. Of course, I've worked with a group of other journalists who have had similar cases where they find that there's heavily armed people just doing a random checkpoint in a highway, and then you always have to call your somebody back in the city or back in where you're based, to tell them, what, we saw this, or there was this reporter asking me these questions, or there was this security official or this policeman who asked us this. I just want you to know, it was in this point, and this is what we told them, and this is what we're going to do. And you always have to be in contact with, whoever is, again, back in your city, back in your base, and be, so they know where you are, where you're heading, and who are you with,
It sounds to me like that would be good advice for freelancers who might not have a home base, but that they should make sure that somebody, their friends or family or somebody, knows where they are at.
Right. Even if they have like sometimes I've heard of freelancers, I know a lot of freelancers in Mexico who have, they even have an editor they like to work with, or a client they work most with and they feel comfortable with someone. Or sometimes they even know other journalists, like I've had other journalists tell me, I'm here, I'm reporting on this, just so you know. So it's always good to have something like that, and that way, if something happens, when, you have some kind of clue. And there's always, I mean, I know we talked about the phones and the privacy issues around the phones, but there's also kind of apps that we have used at the AP to know where your reporter is out working. So we used to use one called Google Latitude, and it no longer exists. But there's the Find Friends app that Google has, and I'm not sure, you know, whatever they feel most comfortable with, but they can share their location with someone and just, so basically you're just sharing your location with a group of two people, maybe your editor and maybe another coworker, or maybe their, you know, some family member or their loved one or something. So there's always a way to share your location only with the people you want to do that with, and so they know that you're heading in, and it's very good, because if, let's say you get robbed, or let's say you're abducted, or you're taken by the police, they know exactly where your phone is, and the phone could still be with you, and if the phone is no longer with you, they at least know where the point where the phone last was.